Today I'd like to talk about the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, in particular law number 16. Law number 16 says, use absence to increase respect and honor. So what's all this about? Okay, so let's take a quick look at Wikipedia. What we have here, Robert Greene in 1998 produced a non-fiction book called the 48 Laws of Power. So what is the 48 Laws of Power actually about? Okay, so he says here that he was working as a writer in Hollywood, and he concluded that the power elite of today share many things in common with historical figures, and that's where the book came from. It's a big success and it's often quoted and used. And it has a whole bunch of very interesting laws. I think if you just listen to the kind of listing here, it gives you some kind of idea of the sort of essence of it. You have things like law number 1, never outshine the master. Okay, make people above you feel comfortable. Law number 2, never put too much trust in friends, learn to use your enemy. Law number 3, conceal your intentions. Okay, so this is like a sophist handbook. If you ever hear of sophists, S-O-P-H-I-S-T-S, back in the time of Socrates, there was a guy called Sophist, and you'd hire them, and he'd be hired to make you look good. So their approach is to win arguments and to beat people, and it's all based upon an idea of lack of abundance in life and how to make the most of it. Number 5, for example, so much depends on reputation, guard it with your life. Number 10, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. Oh my God. 12, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Oh my God, so restrictive, isn't it? 13, when asking for help, appeal to self-interest of others, never to their mercy or gratitude, which is a very good point. So it's all about how to try and win people over. So what's the Law 16 all about, and why is it important? Now, obviously, I'm not a big fan of a lot of what this guy is talking about, because it's about understanding human psychology and leveraging people. And there can be a use to this in the sense that it's good to realize the lay of the land. It's good to understand what way people are. And I think it's good to understand and be practical in life. The problem with books like this, though, is that they can also make you be, too ruthless, lack of belief in humanity and in yourself, that sort of thing. But there is a great truth in law number 16, which is use absence to increase your sense of respect and honor. And it's a very simple concept, and the concept is pretty much like this. If you are too accessible, if you are too accessible, if you are very approachable, if you are always around, you will tend not to be appreciated. We see this in relationships, we see it in jobs, we see it even in businesses. We look at so many businesses, they'll have a sale on, and they'll have things like, this is 48 hours to go and buy this thing, or the first 100 will win something. Even on Amazon, I go into Amazon, and you've got 16 hours to buy this, and you get a 37% discount. It's the exact same thing again. So that's scarcity. And human psychology is very important. And everything I talk about in this channel is about boosting yourself, being happier, being more content, achieving more in life, and so on. But we also have to be realists and understand that how we are in the world, how we are perceived in the world is very important. And how people understand who we are and accept us or don't accept us. So it's like, there's a saying in the Bible where Jesus talks in the Bible. He says, where 2 or more are gathered, I am there with you. And he's talking about spirituality. But we can also say in politics, where 2 or more are gathered, you have politics. So human life is political. And there's always, whenever you're doing something that involves more than one person, even 2 people, even like in a family or a relationship, there's a certain amount of politicalization in the sense of trying to leverage a situation for your advantage, is what every human being does. And there's a very famous Italian by the name of Niccolo Machiavelli. You might have heard the phrase Machiavellian, as somebody who's scheming, who's getting their way. They're very Machiavellian. And it really comes from his work. Around 1513, he wrote a book called The Prince. And it's basically a book about how to use politics in your favor. And a lot of people thought that Machiavelli was, an evil guy. He's all scheming, very much like his 48 Rules. But if you actually look deeper into the book, you'll see what he's basically saying is that the honest man has only a certain courses of action, and the dishonest man has more courses of action because he can cheat. Therefore, the honest man, to some degree, must cheat a little bit, or at least be aware of cheating, or at least scheme a little bit. So, really, Machiavelli wasn't that bad after all. So what can we take from Machiavelli, and what can we take from the 48 laws of power? In particular, the 16th one, to use absence to increase respect and honor. We can be very well intentioned in life, but we've also got to be practical and we've got to be political, which means whenever you're dealing with other people, you have to understand how to deal with them. Say, for example, you're in a romantic relationship, and let's say you're very eager about the other person. But if you're all over the other person, you'll probably push them away. A lot of people do. This is called playing hard to get. And of course, some people take it to an extreme, and they actually lose opportunities by playing it too hard to get. So in life, you don't have to play hard to get as such, but you have to make yourself have a little bit of leverage to some or other degree. I remember some years ago, I read a book about investing and how to make money in land and real estate market and so on. It's a very fascinating book. I forget the title at the moment, I'm sure it'll come back to me. But basically, in this book, this guy was as a middleman between people selling and buying property. And he was being screwed over left, right, and center, because as soon as the deal was about to be made, they would just throw him out because they had to give him maybe 10% share or 5% share. So instead, they would get rid of him. And eventually, he started realizing the power of leverage, that he would never introduce one to the other, that he would use a lot of legal contracts, and eventually he was able to go make money that way. And the real emphasis of that book was the power of leverage. So you can be a real nice person. I'm not saying you should be a ruthless person at all. You can be a real nice person in life. But you've got to know when to be Mr. Nice and when to be Mr. Nasty. You got to know when to be quiet. You got to know when to be active. And it's just about seeing every act in life as a political act. Okay, you have to think strategically about how you do things. Okay, if say you're in your family, say you're married and you have a wife or a husband, a few kids, and you want to, you want to buy a new vehicle, for example, or you want to buy a new TV. Do you just walk in there and say, I want the TV or want the vehicle or whatever? Probably not. Probably you build up to it. And I think subconsciously we all know this in our everyday life, that we kind of build up to explaining to people around us that this is what we want, and trying to get your family to buy into that holiday or buy into that new vehicle or that new house or whatever it is. But yet in everyday life, in how we deal with our relationships in general, especially with our work life, we tend to be rather clueless. And what we have to remember is everything is strategic. How do I reach out to other people? How do I get people to give me what I want? Now that does not mean that I have to be ruthless or like this Robert Greene guy, where everything is just a transaction. I'm not saying we should be transactional, but we have to understand how we present ourselves. Let's say, for example, I'm in a meeting and let's say with my boss and team. My boss asked me to comment on something, but if I comment on that thing, I'm basically going to be criticizing the boss. Should I do it? Probably not. Why? Because once you're in a group of people, that comment that you make back to your boss will be taken as an insult by the boss, or the team will see it as an insult. There's not very many working environments that will see in a team meeting a direct criticism of a boss in a positive way. It's rare. It depends upon your culture, the work culture, working in the relationship you have with your boss and your colleagues. But in general, it won't work well. In general, if you want to say something really critical to your boss, you are better talking to them one-on-one or in a small group of people. Then it's not taking in the same way. It's a very funny thing about human interactions and human psychology. When we are in a big group, when I'm in a big group, say anything like 4 or 5 plus, everything we say is magnified and taken out of context. And this is where I think we can run into problems when we think about the truth. I used to have a friend of mine who was always saying, I want the truth, I want to find the truth, I want to find out what's the truth. What the hell is the truth? And I've often said this to people, there's more than one truth, there's multiple truths. And usually when I say it, there's a certain bunch of people who get angry and irritated when I say there's multiple truths, because there can only be one truth. Now there's certain realities, certain objective realities of life. The earth is going around the sun approximately 24 hours a day. In the morning, the sun's going to rise. In the evening, the sun's going to set. These are objective realities of life. If I throw an apple up, it's going to fall down. These are objective. But let's see a situation where we're having an argument or a discussion with some people. Each person sees it differently. Some years ago, the police did some research on witness testimonies regarding accidents. And what they discovered shocked them a lot, because up until that point, 1950s, 1960s, whatever the witness says, they took it as gospel. But then they started to realize, when they did some psychological research, that you would have 10 people witness an accident and 10 people see 10 different things. Because your mind, by and large, reconstructs things to make sense. If we look at, for example, illusionists, these are the modern magicians who have something amazing happen, and then it's like, how did they get out of that thing? Or how did they're over there and they're over here. If you talk to an illusionist, they'll say, well, human beings are focused on X. While they're focused on X, I'm doing Y, and I'm literally going straight past them. There's another famous video on the internet where it has a bunch of people doing activities, and then they ask, did you see anything during that video? And if you haven't seen that video before, you will probably not see that thing. But then when you look at it slowly, you'll see somebody who's in an ape suit and you walk between the other people. You didn't notice. You're so busy watching the people passing the ball, you didn't see the guy or the girl in the ape suit. Humans are like that. We have a selective way of seeing things, and we tend to construct things that make sense based upon our belief system, in the sense of how we believe things are in our daily lives. So in something like a situation where you're talking to people, like you're having a work meeting, or even in a relationship, how things are construed is important. How you come across. You see, you can say, I'll try and be a very genuine person. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, I'm sad. And that sounds great. But if you got your girlfriend, your wife, and say for example, they haven't seen you all day, and you meet them, and you're sullen and you're not interactive, very quickly you're probably going to have an argument on your hands. Either that, or they're going to give you the cold treatment. Why? Because you have basically, in a romantic relationship, you have basically entered a kind of a unwritten contract that I am special to you and you're special to me, and we must give special time for each other. And part of that is they're going to expect, if they haven't seen you all day or all week, that you're going to be pumped up. So this might sound false, but makes more sense before you meet that girlfriend, boyfriend, husband or wife or whatever, or close friend, that you clear your brain before seeing them and you pump yourself up a bit and demonstrate the first few minutes of seeing them, half an hour or so, perhaps an hour, that you're really interested. Now this is political. It's not exactly genuine, but it works. And it's the right thing to do, because you can be too honest in life, okay? You should be honest, but you also have to realize that you are a political being, and every action you take has an effect upon how other people perceive you. You could be, say, very quiet, and somebody will perceive you as deep thinking. Somebody else will think you're a moron. Which one is true? Which is the reality? Maybe neither is the reality. Maybe you're not deep thinking and you're not a moron. That's another possibility. So getting back to absence, for the use of absence, is realizing that we are political beings. So if you just use absence on its own, you're going to be a pain in the ass. Because using absence on its own, it's like you're giving people the cold treatment, or you're playing hard to get. And that often backfires, okay? For example, the wife who won't talk to her husband for 2 days when they have an argument. I showed him. You're not really showing anything. You're destroying the communication. Lines of communications are gone. He is starting to think this way. You're starting to think this way. And coming back to this is very hard. Now, it's much wiser if you can start to see you're going this way and think, what am I going to do? Maybe a little bit of absence. I'll make myself busy today. I won't be able to talk to them. I'll just call back saying, sorry, I'm really busy, I'll talk to you later. You're not insulting. You're not giving the cold treatment. You're not playing hard to get as such, but you're creating a little bit of distance, a little bit of something. Same thing in your job. If you're, say, for example, in your job, and you're always accessible and can always do things, well, I can guarantee you they'll have you working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs. You'll be doing everything. You make a cup of tea and coffee for everybody, and you'll be filling in for everybody. And people will think you're a great guy, a great gal, all together while they give you their work so you can do their work. No, you have to put down boundaries. When we have boundaries, we have a sense of what's real. If there's no boundary, I don't know how far I can or cannot push. There has to be a little bit of boundary, a little bit, I'll do this, but won't do that. That doesn't mean you have to be a pain in the ass. That doesn't mean you won't help. But you have to establish this certain amount of absence. And absence doesn't always mean they're not physically available, especially a job. Absence can mean I will do this, but won't do that. Okay? Absence is just creating a little bit of a boundary. Okay? Don't be too easy. Don't be too helpful in a job. It's a fine line because you have to appear to be helpful, but same token, you're an important person. Something that's always amazed me myself is that if I'm working in a local situation, I'm just like a local colleague. If I have to do some kind of guest lecture, guest appearance, or anything like that, suddenly I'm an expert from afar, and then I'm treated more like a VIP. I'm treated as more special. And more respect is shown, largely because people don't know me. Jesus says this in the Bible. A prophet is never accepted in his own land. And there's great truth to this when we think of daily life, that often we are more appreciated when people don't know much about us, when we're mysterious, or we come from a different department, or a different office, or a different country. So create a little bit of mystery about yourself. Don't tell everybody everything. Don't answer every question. That also means don't be a pain in the ass, and don't be full of yourself and egotistical. But hold a little something back. We see this in fiction. Too many fiction stories that give the whole story away and there's no sense of mystery. There's be a little bit of mystery about you. In a relationship, there must be something a little bit unsolved. Otherwise, why is the other person interested in you? You can never give fully all the time. But you gotta be careful. You must give and you must love. But a little bit of that political understanding that if I give completely all the time, then I'll be taken for granted. So you must give, but you must do so in a way that's a little bit political, a little bit aware of how do I position myself, that I'm not insulting anybody, that I'm respecting people, and yet I have certain boundaries or things I'm not going to do right now. And when you do that, you will find that people respect you more when they realize they have to ask for your help, when they realize that they must appreciate you to some degree, when they realize that you're not always available, or maybe you're not available for another hour or two. Very small things. And we can come across like this Robert Greene thing of being very political, but just realize that human relationships, two or more gathered, it is a political situation. And to some degree, to gain some respect, we have to make the other person work a little bit. Not work too much. Don't play cold, don't play hard to get. Don't be disrespectful, don't be a big head, but just a little bit of absence, either physical absence or just difficulty in you doing something that makes them appreciate, oh God, this is difficult. I have to ask this person nicely to do this work, okay? And this, if you use this the correct way, you'll find it quite empowering to use a little bit of absence to create more respect and honor in what you do. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe if you do. I'll talk to you next time.